G'day Reefers, I'm Cam the Fish Guy. Thanks for watching Gallery Aquatica TV. Today we're at a really exciting tank called Reef. We installed Reef 2 years ago and we're back today to give the tank a bit of a once over before the cabinetry is installed on this system. So let's go check out Reef. So this tank is huge. This tank is 8 feet long by a little bit more than 2.5 feet wide by 2.5 feet high. So that's 240 centimeters long, 80 centimeters wide, 75 centimeters high. It's 1,400 liters or 385 gallons. So it's a massive tank. Let's just have a quick look at some of the componentry systems running on this tank before we look at the fish and the corals. So above the tank, there are 4 AI hydras. Now these aren't hyperdrives, these are the original hydras with the analog programming, and they're doing the job adequately, but this is something that we're definitely going to look at in the future to improve. The lighting system is only just adequate, and we're looking at having more units of the hydras on this tank to get better coloration with the corals. Let's have a look at the plumbing. Now this tank is going to have cabinetry hiding all of the plumbing and the workings of the tank, so we really wanted to take this opportunity to show the plumbing on this system. So this tank runs a Calfo overflow and it has 3 drains. The main drain uses a valve to control the amount of water that flows through it, and we use that to act as a silencing system so that we can ensure that the right amount of water goes through the emergency drains so that we don't have too much gurgling. Interestingly, with this tank, it runs a twin return system, and we have 2 return lines, and they run up on the front and the back of the tank, and one of the return lines comes back into the tank at the front right hand side, and the other is way down the other end of the tank, all the way down the back on the left hand side. Now these return lines are actually fed by, and we'll go down to the filter now, 2 return pumps. And so we have 2 9,000 litre an hour Aquamatic DC runners. And so this tank has got a really high turnover of flow. And the flow accelerators on the end of the return pumps really mean that we've got a great baseline flow just from the return. So we have a refugium system, and this refugium is huge. It's more than 2 feet wide and 2 feet long. It's lit by an Acro illumination prime, and so we've even got a few corals down here that are seemingly doing quite well. There's a bit of cyano on the Kino, but that's not a problem. It's a really nice refugium system. There's also a Nios 300, so it's a massive protein skimmer. And so you can see that it's propped up on a little platform here. So this allows us to have perfect control so that we can ensure that the skimmer is sitting in the perfect height of water. And the drainage line feeds into this section, and it goes through 2 acrylic filter socks, which we have packed with some Dacron. Okay, so we'll have a quick look at the water flow. So I mentioned the return pumps, and the return pumps are giving that baseline flow. However, there's also 2 Gaia 150s. So these are the original Gaias. Now they put up a really good flow. They're excellent for just below the surface of the water. We've got them turned off at the moment, but there's also, down this end, an Ecotech MP40, just here. Now, when the cabinetry is on this Ecotech MP40 is going to be, the dry side is going to be hidden, and so you'll only be able to see the wet side in the tank. So this is the perfect way to use these wave makers. They're very discreet systems. So now that we've had a look at the filtration and the componentries on this tank, let's have a look at the fish and the corals. So we'll just have a look at the corals. Now, starting at this far right hand side, you can see that we've got a couple of the hammer corals down here, and they're just moving in the perfect amount of flow. Hammers and other euphyllias really like that random flow where all their tentacles are moving. There's a lithophyllon which is also doing very well. Now, it would be enjoying the amount of light that it's getting, which is one of the reasons why its colour is quite good. Moving up past the torches and the soft coral at the back, you can see on this bommy we've got a number of acros and there's a Bacillopora, and they're not really screaming with colour, and this for me is probably the greatest indication as to why the lighting system needs to be improved. These acros, whilst they're healthy enough, they've got sufficient tissue coverage, they're not receding at all, their colour is just not really popping, so the lighting is what we're going to look at improving in the future for this. Over here we've got a section of a variety of soft corals. There's the daisy polyps and the zoanthus, but what I like the most about this bommy is there's this really cool patch of Recordia, and with these Recordia, Darren was saying he started out with 2 and now there's more than 7 there, but some of them have got these really large bouncing tentacles, and so they're a particularly cool batch of Recordia. And there's other corallomorpharians, you know, there's the corallomorphs down the bottom, they're loving the amount of light. There's also a couple of fluffies. Fluffies are something you have to be careful that they don't get out of control, so normally we islandize those like Darren's done here, keeping them off the main structure so they don't take over. But this is probably my favourite coral in here. It's a Batavia blue stag, and it's obviously doing very well. Interestingly, it's growing down in some sections, and this is one of the jobs we've got today. We actually have to trim off a few of those branches just because they're starting to grow into some of the other corals, and it's quite easy just to snip off the corallites or just sections of the coral so that they don't clash with other corals. And on this last bommy here, we've got the Platygyra, which I really like when the Platygyras grow in that proper brain shape. So this is a nice colony, it's just starting to attach onto the rock. And then there's more acros. This one's growing quite well. Again, its colour would be better if we improve the lighting. There's a little bird's nest, and there's quite a nice acro at the back there. So all the corals are really, really healthy. Pretty much everything is doing really well. So now the fish. So one of the stars of the fish in this tank is the copperband butterfly. Now, copperband butterflies can be quite difficult fish to get to feed on prepared foods like frozen foods, but this one feeds really, really well. He'll almost put his nose up into the pipette that the food is coming out of because he's that keen on the frozen food. You'll also notice that there are no Aiptasia in this tank. Now, it's interesting because there are Aiptasia in the Calfo overflow. In fact, you'd argue that the Calfo overflow is teeming with Aiptasia. So there's Aiptasia in this system, but there's none in the actual tank, because the best thing about copperband butterflies is that they're really good for Aiptasia control. Now, there's also some really cool tangs in here. There's a trio of 3 yellow tangs, and they really have a great presence in the tank, and in combination with the blue tang, they really sort of fill out the tank, and being such a large tank, it's important to have fish which are out and about and confident and personable. There's also some Anthias, a few wrasse, cleaner wrasse, a few other miscellaneous fish, flame angel, but everything is doing really well. The colours on the fish are excellent, and they really create a beautiful dynamic in this tank. So we really thought it was a good idea to show this tank before all the cabinetry goes onto the system. Now, the idea with the cabinetry is going to be that to the left of the tank there's a bench, and it comes out to about here, which is going to enclose the chiller. So we'll need to ensure that the chiller can exhaust out of this section but it's also going to create a little bit of a table so that we can work here, do water tests or whatever, but still leave this open side of the tank so that we can look down at this angle as well. Then of course the cabinet will include doors that will open up so you can access into the filter system. There'll also be, it'll be enclosed above the tank, so there'll probably be either doors that open this way or up, but that way all of the lighting will be hidden behind the cabinetry. And over this way, the Calfo will be hidden behind a door which will come to here, and this will all be enclosed. However, this will be a relatively narrow section which is effectively just for all the electrical componentry and all of the controllers. But it was a really good opportunity to show this tank and show all the workings of this tank before the cabinetry goes on. Okay, so it's time to do a little bit of work on this tank. Now, Darren is really good with the maintenance on this tank, and he does the vast majority of it himself. However, he's not overly confident with the dosing pump, and he's asked me today to come around and set up a slave unit to go with his master Aquatic dosing pump. So they're very basic, and the main thing you need to know is that you link both the master and the slave with this cable, and let's see, and everything else is pretty straightforward. So I'm just going to put this in here for the slave. I'm going to set the slave on top of the master for now. We may move it in the future, but given that he's got this little shelving unit set up, it's probably going to be the easiest way. And I'm just going to put the other end of the cable into the master. Now, once you do that, you should be good to go. And I'm just going onto the controller, and I'm going to go into one of the number 6. So pumps 5, 6, 7, 8 are all on the slave. So now we've got the ability to program all of these pumps. So I just have to hook up our hosing, get our vessels for what we're going to dose, and we'll be all good to go. So our master unit has actually got the Red Sea Foundation ABC running on it. With the slave unit, we're going to run the Red Sea Trace program, which is A, B, C and D. So luckily we've got 4 heads on this slave unit, and we've got 4 of the trace elements to dose. So I'm just setting them all up, and then we'll set the program on them. One of the excellent things about these bottles is that they've got the perfect little way to set up your dosing pump. There's a little hose tail for your tubing, just go straight on like so, and straight from there to the dosing pump. So it's perfect for this job. So Darren has been dosing the trace element system a bit sporadically, manually, and by having it on the dosing pump, we'll have a lot more control over how much of the trace element is going in. I think that along with the lighting on this system, the trace element dosing is the other thing that we can do to really improve the coloration and the health of the corals. We've attached the dosing line to the vessels, and now we have to attach the return of the dosing line onto our dosing tube bracket. So we pretty much just feed them through the holes like so. I like to have them protrude at the bottom about 1 centimetre or half an inch sort of thing. And so we've got 4. In a second I'll probably just get the length of the tubes right so that we don't have slack hosing between here and the pump. But for now, I'll just get them all set up. So now that we have our dosing pump lines connected to the top of our dosing vessels, they're also connected, the returns are connected to the bracket that goes into the tank. We've just done one more thing to get it all ready. We've just added a short length from the underside of the cap and ensured that it's long enough to run to the bottom of the bottle. So now we are ready to prime our lines. And with the Aquametic Evo 4, Master and Slave, this is very easy. It's as easy as hitting across to the right. This brings up all the pumps, and we're going to prime pumps number 5, 6, and 7. So this is number 5, and you basically hit set and you wait for the solution to feed through until it feeds into the tank. And it should be feeding through about now. So now that we've got the dosing pump set up, we'll look at some of the corals we have to prune, and the main one is this blue stag here. Now, interestingly, it's grown down, and what that means is that it's actually about to clash with this blasto. And so this should be a very easy cut, but I'm just going to remove this piece here, and hopefully it will just be as easy as that. Okay, excellent. So we'll put this aside. We might glue this in place. I think given the size of this colony, we probably don't need to worry about keeping it. And what else? There was another one as well. Oh yeah, so over here we've got a little bit of a clash. Now I think this, what I have to unfortunately call a brown acropora. I think that when we improve the lighting it will actually show a bit more colour, but it has one branch directed towards this blue. So I'm going to give it a quick cut here. Alright, it's always that little bit easier to prune SBS when they're fully encrusted onto the rock, because it means they've got a nice, yeah, there we go, they've got a nice strong base, and so you don't have to worry about the piece breaking off its glue hold. So this is Rocky Reef, and as you can see it is quite a neat tank. Everything is very well thought out. The tank has been meticulously planned from the start, and a lot of time and effort has gone into looking at exactly what type of componentry is going to run on this system, what shape aquascape we're going to do, what type of lighting. Everything in this tank has been well thought out right from the start. Now the last part of this puzzle is really all about the cabinetry. And so when we get to the point that the cabinetry is put onto this tank, we'll come back and have a look at exactly how the cabinetry goes onto this system. But for now, it's a really good opportunity for us to see this tank, see the workings, and show you exactly how a top-end reef system functions without all the cabinetry hiding the filtration. So that's our video for today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Gallery Aquatica TV, and thank you so much for watching. I'm Cam the Fish Guy, and happy reefing. So that's our video for today. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, hit the subscribe as well. We'll be putting out videos every week showing a new tank with new products. There's going to be lots in all the videos. I'm Cam the Fish Guy, and keep on reefing.